Is that the call I've been waiting for? Hello? Okay, cool. That's great news. I'm on my way. All right guys, so as you saw in the intro, I finally got the call I was waiting for, and that was from the machine shop. And I got everything I needed, got the head back, got the pistons done with the piston rings. I had to modify the piston slightly. And also these are the PD head bolts that have been shortened, 15 mil, and they've even imitated the original bolt with this little taper here at the end, which is super, super cool. That's some good workmanship there. I'm dying to show you what I've done to the head. Now, I've put and polished it, but we'll get into it later on in the video. The reason why the machine shop had it was because gave it a skim, gave it a clean, and also they took these bolt holes out to 12.5 so I can fit the M12 PD head studs into it. But like I said, we'll get into this later on in the video. So for you guys that may have not seen part one, what I've done is, because these are 13:1 compression ratio pistons, I didn't want to go that high, especially because I was decking the block and also skimming the cylinder head. I've also actually opted for the thickest gasket because there was actually a few sizes when I looked, so I actually opted for the thicker one. But my target is to get around 11.5. So what I've done is I've taken 1.5 mil off the top of this piston. The other issue I had was the piston rings, because obviously I sourced these off another block that I bought. I tried to find a set of rings to order to get here to Portugal, and it just seemed a nightmare. I couldn't find anyone. The machine shop, all they could do was get me the standard set of rings. So then we measured the ring, and he actually got this ring, just 4 sets of these basically, which is 1.2. And what we did is he machined slightly the piston ring, took it out so that we can fit now that slightly larger size on there. I mean, that shouldn't be an issue. If you look at the turbo version of these, they actually run a 1.5 on the top ring, a 1.2 on the middle ring. So this piston now will be running a 1.2 and a 1.2 for the first ring and the second ring. So it makes my life a lot easier. Basically, I can just use, if I have another issue again in the future, I can just get a set of standard piston rings or 2 sets of standard piston rings and just use 2 of the top rings in this piston. Hopefully that was clear. I didn't confuse you guys too much. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is actually put the rods on these pistons, get the piston rings, got everything on the bench. So now I'm just going to literally take the gudgeon pin off on one side carefully before it flies off and you lose it. Always be careful with that. It's always important to make sure you've got loads of oil. Good to have a lot of oil when you're assembling. There you go, it's number 1 done. Number 2 done. Which way is the piston? That way. And this way. Make sure they've clicked in. That's number 3 done. And last but no means least, number 4's done. Okay guys, so all 4 have done. Now, there's the arduous task of double checking and making sure the gaps on the ring are fine. And once that's all done, actually mounting them on the pistons. And I'm gonna show you guys how to do that with a feeler gauge so you don't actually damage or deform the piston ring trying to put it on, opening it too wide. Just get a feeler gauge and you slide them on. It's really quite simple. All right guys, so let's get on with that now. So what I like to do is use an original piston. And what it is, you kind of push the piston ring in, the piston ring's in there ready. And I use this as a gauge here to make sure the piston's level. Then you can measure accurately the gap that's on the piston ring. Now for these ABFs, I like to have a gap of 0.3, especially if it's NA. If it's boosted, I might go a little bit more, 0.4. So hopefully you guys can see it. This is actually 3.05, and it's a nice fit there. Perfect. I've also got the other one on the other side, and they're the same. So it's perfectly gapped. So I didn't need to touch them. That's perfect because these were actually made for me, these piston rings. God knows how they've made them for the price I paid for them. But yeah, so they all work perfectly. So that's it now. I can literally I'll show you guys what's involved with actually sliding them on to the pistons. Okay, so I've laid out all the piston rings in order. I've already done this one oil one, so you've got to start at the bottom because really it makes it easier. You can't actually get the piston rings over once you've got the actual rods on, you'll damage them. So you got to go from the top down. So you start at the bottom and work your way up. With these oil ones, they're pretty simple to do. You don't actually, just be very careful not to actually deform them. Just be very careful. You'll see as I putting it on. And also you can see that they're in 2 parts. Also make sure you don't have the gaps in the same place. Make sure they're at least about 180 or about 90 away from each other. The gaps, that's very important, or else you will have oil consumption problems. Be as careful as you can. Don't try to go straight down to the bottom in one go. And now that that is there, I'm going to turn the piston around and put on the top one. And there you go. So the gaps are, one's there and the other one is there. So they're almost 180 away from each other. Just do the same again with the other ones. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the second ring. Now always check with the rings if there's any markings on them that will indicate that it's the top of the piston ring. So there is a top and bottom. This one actually says literally top on it. I don't think you're going to catch it on the camera. So now if you're not careful, you will actually scratch it trying to put it on. So what I do is start it off with a feeler gauge. So as you can see with the gauge, work your way around, and then at the edge here where it's at, that's the bit you got to be careful not to scratch the piston. And there you go, no issues, look at that, perfect. Again, make sure you're not lined up with one of the old ones. So that one's going to be there, and the top one's going to be facing perpendicular to that one. Again, check for markings. The mark will always be the top. got a little mark there. Just do the same again. So I'll just move on and do the other 4 off camera, and then we'll put them in the sleeve, fit them into the block. There we go. Again, make sure you lubricate always. Make sure you put in the cap as well, the right way around. Now I'm going to hook these up to ARP spec. Okay, make sure you always do it twice, double check that they are tight. Now I'm going to rotate it around, make sure it moves freely and there's no noise or any other issues. Okay, yeah, that is really nice. I'm really happy with that. No scoring, no dodgy noises, no resistance. It's all smooth as it should be. Perfect. Okay, let's move on now and do the other 3. So I fitted the other 3, no issues there. And also, as I fitted each one on, I rotated it around to make sure it rotates smooth. And it is lovely and smooth. Also, I've already fitted on the new oil pump and torqued up those bolts. So now, next thing to do is put the sump on. And for the sump, I've actually got a really nice sump. I've actually got a Schrick baffled sump. It's got kind of little oil ways inside it. So yeah, as you can see, there's the baffles and the oil pump sits in that place there. And it's got like these little pathways to make some resistance. So when you go side to side, there's always oil being fed to the pump, hopefully. And it's also got these cooling fins. There's all cooling fins on it as well. And there's the old Schrick. So now I'm just going to fit the gear. So it's really straightforward. Just literally just drop it in. Make sure it rotates there and go lubricate it a little bit. Right, so I've put the cap on. I painted it before I put it on, so it looks all nice and stealth. And also around the back here, I've actually managed just to put this bracket on, which is the engine mount bracket and also the little support for the power steering. I need to find the bracket. I don't think I've actually got another cradle. I need to have a look and see if I can find one. It's the exhaust heat shield. So I've done a few little bits and pieces, but now let's move over to the bench so you guys can see what I've done here on the cylinder head. Okay guys, so as you can see, I'm going to zoom in here so you guys can see hopefully. So here, this is the head that I've done. I've been working on this for a few weeks, slowly, doing it bit by bit. First did the combustion chambers, then did the ports. All right, so as you can see here, it's really smooth around the transition between the inlet and the exhaust. And on the other ABF head, as you can see, there's a rough edge around there. As well as what I've done is also I've smoothened this bit off here, so then it clears the pistons. Because they were touching slightly, so I've slightly changed the shape here. And also the throats, unfortunately you're not going to be able to see what I've done, but I've also blended them in quite a lot between where the seat is and this area around the valve guide is quite important, so I've done that on both sides. Now let's flip the heads over so you can see the inlet port. So here on the inlet port, I haven't polished it to high polish. You've got to leave it kind of a bit rough. And as you can see, I've kind of made the divider a bit sharper. As you can see the difference here, it's kind of a bit more blunt, so I've changed the shape of it as well. And also even the bit here where the injector, it's got like a little ridge there. Whereas here, as you can see, I've blended it in really nicely. And on the exhaust port, basically done the same, cleaned it all up, polished it up to a bit of a higher polish, because obviously it's the exhaust, you don't want carbon to grip onto it. And we did that. I haven't really changed too much the shape of the ports or opened them up much, just literally just a clean knife edge this, that, and basically paid attention more on the throats where the valve seat meets the head. It's kind of rough around there, cleaned it up. Unfortunately, I've already put the head together, so I can't really show you guys what I've done, but I've cleaned it up. But you can see in the combustion chamber the kind of work that I've done. All right, now let's bolt this on before TDC so that when you go put the head on, one, the valves are not going to touch, you're not going to bend the valves. Also, when you go to torque it up, you're also not going to bend the valves because you've pushed the pistons off TDC. That's also a very important note. All right, let's put this on. Okay, is it on the dial? Yep, perfect. All right, guys, so as you can see, I've bolted the head down. I didn't show you guys that. It's just a simple torque thing. There's still bits to do. Inlet manifold, exhaust manifold, timing belt and timing it all up, as well as the alternator and the power steering cradle and a few bits and pieces, but not too much left to do now. But guys, I need a bit of help from you guys. What do I do? My idea was to go all black. I was gonna paint the block, even the head, all in black, everything all in black. But I'm actually liking this two-tone. Let me know what you guys think, if I should paint the rocker cover, the inlet manifold in black as well, or leave them all in silver, or should I paint them another color? I'm gonna put a poll up on Monday so you guys can actually interact and have some input into this project, and let me know what you guys think, what I should do color-wise. I'm a bit unsure if I should do it all in black because I'm actually liking this silver and black now at the moment. It kind of stands out. So let me know what you guys think. All right, guys, the end of another video. Please subscribe, ding-a-ling-a-ling, click on that notification bell, and be safe, guys.